When it comes to energy formulas, I think Gamer Supps is without rival. It is peerless. It sits undefeated. It is the bonjour of energy drinks. It is the emperor of energy formulas. It's just everything in it. All the rest are just trash. And basically, most of them are a rip-off. The flavours usually taste way too chemically. It's different with Gamer Supps. It's nice and smooth. It's got a nuanced, sort of complicated but delicious flavour that has a whole palate sort of teaser into different aftertaste. Actually is enjoyable. Doesn't seem like there's blasting you. You get the little caffeine high, but you don't feel like, what the hell, I am all cracked out, like people for some reason implies good about some of those canned drinks. And even better, it's not only sugar free, but you can get 10% off with the code Thorin, Thorin, at gamersupps.gg. My favourites include citrus lemonade and guacamole Gamer Fart 9000, which is actually strawberry and lime. It's quite delicious. Now, one of the best features of the League of Legends professional circuit, I have told so many people who come from other esports games like my native Counter-Strike or Quake or StarCraft, and they're like, why do you go in League of Legends? Like, it's a little kids game. It's not even Dota. At least do Dota. And I'll tell them, like, look, as a game, obviously, yeah, I think Dota is a better esports game. It's more skilled. But the thing League of Legends has that no other esports game has, except maybe Valorant, this is something I've been bigging up about Valorant recently, is it's a truly, fully international competition. You have all the big regions and countries in the world are trying almost their hardest to be as good as they can at League of Legends. That's a brilliant feature. That could mean you can source the best talent ever and pit them against each other. What a great concept, right? Whereas in CSGO, that's more of just a European and North American game. Valorant has the fully international thing. In Dota, okay, you have a whole bunch of regions. You have China. Korea isn't there in the same way they are in League of Legends or in Valorant. So the problem is, you look at these other games and they're more limited. They might be better games, but the scene is more limited. But here's where I actually think League of Legends absolutely shoots itself in the foot. Aside from all the many other ways of just the one-hit national tournament and the way that they do the leagues instead of tournaments, don't allow third party. Look, there's plenty of other ways. But this particular one, because I love narratives and the history of esports, this kills me. And that is that because of the structure of the circuit, you do not get proper player versus player, star versus star rivalries if those players don't play in the same region because of the structure of the way it's done. And that actually sucks, because it means if you were to put the top 10 players in the world at any point in time at like mid lane, ADC, the big roles, they almost never have a real rivalry unless they just play in the same region as that guy. And even then, it might be just a couple of playoff series, a few best of ones. It's not going to be a true rivalry like you're going to see at the top of CSGO and at the top of Dota 2. So, for example, in CSGO, I purposely tried to pick one where it's different regions again, because obviously I could just do like Simple vs. Equal, but they're both technically European, even though obviously now CIS region's sort of its own thing. Even though obviously recently it got brought back into the RMR. So in CSGO, the greatest player ever is Simple. And a player who's the best North American player ever, in my opinion, in CSGO, is Elige. They actually used to be teammates briefly in 2016. But if you go and you look across their careers, one's coming from North America and lives in North America. The other one lives in Ukraine and has lived in Ukraine most of his career. So you look at these two players, here's the record they have. Because Simple's been in number 1, number 2, number 3 teams in the world. Elige's been in number 1, number 2, number 3 teams in the world. They've played 17 LAN series / matches. Simple's won 6, Elige's won 11. Simple's won 12 maps, Elige's won 19. And that is over 14 different tournaments spanning 2016 to 2021. So what an incredible rivalry back and forth these guys have had, and the stories and the narratives and the build-up and the different teammates and the different maps and metas. You could do a whole documentary just about these two, and they played together, they're against each other, they're battling for eras and Grand Slams and majors. Then you go into Dota 2, another game with an open circuit, kind of like CSGO. Let's take two different players. So I'll take Arteezy from North America, probably the best, like in terms of body of work, North American carry player, or 1 or 2 position we're talking here, carry in the colloquial sense. How about, let's take a classic European mid lane, right, carry player, S4, the Alliance player later in Secret and other squads. Right, these two have played, I looked it up, 70 games. How about one of the other great players that played in the North American region, but obviously in his case he doesn't come from there, Sumail, him against S4, 68 games. So 70 games for them, 68 here. Remember, like, in terms of the others, They played 17 matches in CSGO. This, by the way, to be fair on the Dota one, I was just looking on that Dota. I'm not actually sure what all those tournaments are. I'm sure some of them could have been all-star matches and this, but you can see it's a pretty big sample size. You get a real sense of who these guys are. They've battled across their careers. Individually, you can contrast them. You can contrast them against your teammates from the same tournaments. You could judge so much about these guys. Now let's go into League of Legends for a second, guys. Ignoring All-Stars, not All-Stars 2014, because, well, not actually all of them, because, well, obviously, in theory, no, because All-Stars 2014, I mean, like, the team part of it that was sort of the precursor to MSI. So including All-Star tournaments where it's just the exhibition where you get voted in your role, and Rift Rivals tournaments, which just meant nothing to anyone. If you look at, like, real tournaments in League of Legends, you can't make any of these stories about player versus player. There aren't any. It just doesn't work. Like, if I'm telling someone... So for a long time in the game, I used to say Faker's transcended League. He is without peer. No one can rival him. In fact, no one's probably ever going to be able to rival him. But that was mainly because of his resume. In terms of actual body of work, I've said this many times, I actually think Rookie has had a greater career, especially now this year's under his belt as well. I think he was just a better overall main carry, mid laner, star player over his career year on year on year without the same results. He didn't have the same teams, wasn't in the same region. But in terms of body of work, that should be the rivalry. Rookie against Faker. They're even both Korean. One played the most of his career in the LPL. The other played most of his career in the LCK. These are the two major regions in League of Legends. They must have an amazing track record and back and forth, right? These are the two contenders for my money. These are positional rivals. They're contenders for best Korean player ever, best player in history. Well, are you ready for the total here, lads? They've played 2 matches ever. They are 3-1. That's Rookie has 3. Faker has 1. They split one. The Rookies, KT Arrows went 2-0 in OGN Spring 2014 when they were both in Korea. So, by the way, if you take out the Korean part, this becomes one set of games, and it is a 1-1 split at MSI 2019 between SKT, where Faker wasn't even at his prime then, and Rookie on IG when they were the reigning world champions. There would have only been 1 match ever. There's 2 because Rookie played in Korea previously in the past and was able to play him. What rivalry? Like, they've had a separate career. It's almost like Rally. You can judge them doing the same circuit, sort of, and then try and look at the time. But you can't have them directly battle each other, though. And this isn't like these are guys who've had no chances. Rookie's been to Worlds 3 times and MSI once. Faker's been to Worlds 7 times and MSI 6 times. But they never met. Or they almost never met. They never met at a Worlds, never met at a big playoff series. They haven't actually been able to battle much in their careers. They're the 2 greatest players of all time. This reminds me of what happened in the NBA, another sport I actually think suffers from having an old school boomer format of geolocated. So we have to have conferences because you'd have to only travel on the East Coast, not on the West as well. And then they still in the modern day act like the West, by the way, has been stacked for like almost my entire time watching the NBA, like 30 years at this point in time. Just the God. So as a result, LeBron's in the finals in the East all the time. It's the weakest field ever. The great players in the West, there's almost no rivalries. He's only playing against Steph Curry, right? So the classic one, if people don't know, is from 2007 to, I think it was like, let me think. I mean, Kobe got injured in 2013. So 2007 to 2013, LeBron or Kobe was in every final. Because obviously Kobe was in from 2008 to 2010. LeBron was in 2007. And then from there on, he was in more as well. But obviously at that point, Kobe was injured anyway. So over that time span, you think of all those years, 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 7 chances to meet in the finals, right? Never met each other. They were in all the finals, just not together. If people don't know, that's because they're in different conferences their whole careers. LeBron didn't move to the Lakers till later. The format means you have to be the best in both conferences to ever meet. You can't play. There's no cross-conference play. People might know one of the all-time great rivalries, right? Bill Russell against Wilt Chamberlain. What they don't get is there used to be like 8 teams in the league back then. And Russell and Chamberlain were in the Eastern Conference most of the time period you're talking about. He was on like the 76ers. He was on the Philadelphia. He was on these teams, right? In this scenario, like he had a whole bunch of times you could meet him in the Eastern Conference. That's where a lot of those rivalry matchups come from. If you had to only meet in the final, they'd have like half as many or something. How about this? In the 90s, the top 2 scorers were Karl Malone and Michael Jordan. You might think, yeah, they had a brilliant rivalry. They're in 2 finals. Yeah, that's it. Only 2. And if it wasn't for that, what rivalry would they have? A bunch of regular season games. That's whack. So when you have players like Kobe and LeBron, you can't contrast them directly because they don't play directly in the most important matches. So then consider Faker and Rookie. If I look at years where they never played, but they were among the players in this mix of could be top players in the world. So they did nothing together in 2015, didn't ever meet in 2016, didn't meet in 2017, didn't meet in 2018, didn't meet in 2020, didn't meet in 2021, didn't meet yet in 2022. Guys, that's 7 years. And then we're supposed to go to people in other games and go, hey, enjoy the history of the league. These are the 2 greatest players. Almost never fucking played. All right, well, they're not good. No, they were mega amazing in their regions. Like, give me a break. Then even look on the Western regions, by the way. You're going to think it's just because they're Asian. It's so difficult to qualify through LPL. Nah. How about people who've been to loads of worlds from the West? How about Bjergsen? Everyone says he's the GOAT of NA, right? Against Perks and Caps when they're mid laners, crucially. Right, against Perks, he is 1-1. That was from MSI 2017. He's never played Caps, ever, as far as I could tell. Yet Bjergsen has been to Worlds 3 times during the time period that Perks was in the league. He went to MSI 1 time in that period. Didn't matter. Perks during this time period, by the way, went to 6 Worlds and 4 MSIs. And Caps went to 4 Worlds and 3 MSIs. Barely any games between them. How about Jensen then? Because Jensen at least has the records, right? He's been in semis of Worlds. He's been into the final of MSI. So he's been in loads of Worlds playoffs. So he must have a load of games, right? Are you ready? Jensen against Perks and Caps is mid. Right, against Perks, he has 1 loss and 2 draws. He's won 2 games and lost 5. He reached, and that, by the way, one of those series of games, the 0-3, was because he reached the MSI final. So if you take the MSI final out, which is only because they did great in the tournament, MSI Group would have been 2 games. Worlds would have been 2 games. They would have played 4 games ever. 4 BO1s. Jensen against Perks. Against Caps, he only played him at Season 8 Worlds. And in the semis, because they made the semis. Because remember, obviously, actually I've done that wrong. Because I guess I'm doing the Perks as if he was ADC there. Forget that part. In that case, take out MSI 2019 entirely. And MSI entirely, yeah. And Worlds Group. In fact, yeah, Perks and Jensen have never played as mid laners. So it's only Caps, and that's because he reached the semi-finals. Guys, these are the GOATs of the West. What the hell is this? Then how about, let's switch positions, right? How about double lift, AD carry against Uzi I? The greatest, maybe not to me, but the greatest Asian AD carry, the greatest Western Asian carry. I mean, he's also Asian, but you get the premise. Right, Double Lift went to 7 Worlds and 2 MSIs in the time period Uzi I competed. So Season 3 onwards, he wasn't obviously in position to go in Season 2. Uzi I in that time period went to 6 Worlds and 1 MSI. You think, well, they must have loads of games, right? 1 loss, 1 draw. In Season 6 Worlds group stage, they had the games. And then there was the Season 8 MSI group stage. That's it. That's all there ever was. Then how about players? Like, if you don't realise, if you're looking individually at star players and mid laners, then for the past 3 years, in both LPL and LCK, there've been these 2 mid laners have been godlike. There's been Knight of Top Esports, and there's been Chovy of Griffin, DRX, Handwell-Life Esports, and now obviously of Gen G. Now, how many times have they played? These are the best mid-top. They play all the time in Korean solo queue. These are the guys who consider each other like rivals, maybe the best, most skilled player in the world. They played once at Season 10 Worlds where Top Esports played DRX. It was 2-0 for Top. That's it. 1 match ever. 2 games. Where are the rivalries? How are I supposed to sell this? How are you supposed to make documentary content around this? Essentially, tournaments in this game just feel like a big crapshoot of a bunch of players like a couple of times. Here's what's whack. It means you end up with stuff like Bjergsen plays like Power of Evil a bazillion times more, even without even going to LCS, than he plays Perks and Caps. Like, that's just whack. What even is that? Who the hell wants that? Now, look, yeah, obviously, region division is part of the problem because they're not just divided, they're sort of locked off and kept separate. Now, that's good for developing a region, maybe, but it's insular. It means you don't get cross-pollination. You don't get the top people playing the top people and seeing how good they are. The LPL and the LCK competing for 2 to 3 slots for most of history, and even now just 4. It ain't enough. In the LPL, you need like 6. For many years, you needed 4 or 5. You only just got to 4 in the last few. That's why you can be amazing, but in the LPL, you slip up once in the playoffs in summer, you come like 4th. Who knows if you go to Worlds now? Rookie's had a bunch of years where he was stomping, and his team, like the Shy, just hinted for him. Then you consider, when you divide the regions up in the groups at Worlds, you now also lower the chances these top Asian players play each other, because of the effect on seeding, means like if we're both number 1 seed, can't play each other. Both number 2 seed, we have to hope for the lock. Like, it's not the same as if it was just seeded like this. Eventually, a bunch of times we'd have played, and a bunch of brackets would work out for us. No double elim bracket for the playoffs, so you can't have a rematch. You can't play a second time. If you lose here, that's it. I didn't meet you in the semis. I can't meet you in the low bracket. NA, I do think the whole reason they divide the regions was to keep them separate. So guess what? The Bjergsons and the Doubleth aren't going to get much chance. And then you only have these 2 international competitions. MSI, it's only the champion. And then Worlds is 3, maybe if you're lucky, 4 teams from that region. So you're just not going to get these matchups. Like, if you'd had those sorts of rules in place, would Simple and Deletion played all those games? Would RTZ and S4 play? I don't know that they would. Yeah, their circuit's different, so they'd played a lot more. So what rivalries? How are we supposed to have rivalries in this game? It just sucks.
Hey guys, this is Perks, and you're watching Thorin's YouTube channel. I would like you guys to appreciate his YouTube channel, even though he talks sometimes so much that not even I can handle it. But most of the time it's pretty funny and entertaining.
This video was kindly supported by Kill Your Inner Loser, Ahmed Hadjou, Matt Pugnatio Rajcula, Paul Villa, Travis Goff, Adam Ochs, Animosity, Bot Pounder 420, Hades, Jensen Goh, Kovacevicd, Pacy, Tobias Bernasconi, Tosh, Torin, and as always, special thanks goes out to Jerky's Minion. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my shows? Would you like to ask a question in my Patreon AMA? Maybe you want teasers, find out who the next Reflections guests are or upcoming talk show guests. Do you want to take part in one of those long donated discussions with me? Well, if any of the above or more sound interesting to you, put your money where your mouth is. Join the Illuminati today via the Patreon link in the description box below.